Okay, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee where I live. And it's a cold, rainy, nasty day. It's going to continue for some days, I believe, in Israel. 53 degrees now, which is pretty cold. I was sitting outside, my hands went numb. We don't see them forecasting any more rain till tonight, but we see cloudy and, well, actually partially sunny starting around noon. Tomorrow looks like more of the same, and Monday, well, today and then Monday more of the same. Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I think it's over. It'll be cold. It'll actually get colder, I think. Being cloudy, but we won't have rain. And then on Monday, sorry, I lost the signal. So it's a cold, nasty, rainy day. It's going to be like that into next week. And then we're going to break after a few more days. We might have another 5 days of this. I don't quite think that much, but it's going to be cold. And then, well, sometime to the latter part of the week, we're going to come out of it and it's going to warm up again. It may be the end of the bad weather. This will probably push the Kinneret, which is the Sea of Galilee in the Hebrew. It'll probably push it. It looks, when you look down on it, which is like from where I live, you look down on it and it looks like a cello or something like that, they say. I don't know, but it's, you call it the Sea of Galilee. When you get the runoff from the rain in the mountains surrounding the Sea of Galilee, it's probably going to bring it to its maximum or close to its maximum level before it floods, or it may flood. I don't know. But there's plenty of water in the Sea of Galilee, by the way, tons of it, which is interesting. Okay. Well, people are coming, let me jump into the chat and do a little housekeeping in the chat, and then we'll get started. We're coming, let me jump into the chat. Okay. The chat seems to be in order. Be a couple of, very quick. I gotta do a few things in the chat. Won't take a long time. Alright, I'm almost there, moving quick. Getting there. Almost done. And people leave when I do that, so it shows how serious they are, right? You know. Okay. Got it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a walk through Daniel. a little bit of Daniel, like 8, 9, maybe 11 and 12 a little bit. And I'm going to go through Ezekiel 8 to 11 and some scriptures in Revelation. We're going to try to put together the pieces of the puzzle, you know, of Ezekiel 12 and Gog and Magog and all that, and look for timing and different facts and what they teach incorrectly and what it should be. And I'll also start off with a little intel as to what's going on in Israel and America with the so-called civil war coming, which could most likely be a civil war. So I'll do a little praise, because we're a Bible-believing site, and then we'll proceed. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. So, what we gleaned recently is that, you know, Zechariah 12 is the end of Gog and Magog. And that's when we see the appearing of the Son of Man. And the appearing of the Son of Man is going to be in reasonably close proximity to the actual return of Yeshua to earth with New Jerusalem and beginning the millennium. And we need to build some base scriptures to understand some of this. Okay? So I was hard at work this morning, and I'll give you some foundation scriptures that we need to pay attention to, okay, that will help us set the stage. First thing is, when we read of Gog and Magog, America, the United States, is not listed there. Iran is, but it's called Persia, which could mean a Persian Empire, which means Iran can get back into having an empire or acquire more land and countries under them for the attack. It's not really a great idea to say Iran is Persia, because Persia was a lot more than just Iran. A lot, okay? So that's kind of sloppy interpretation. And it just shows, you know, you're just jumping forward without sitting there and analyzing this. But there's no indication that America is in the attack in Gog and Magog. None whatsoever. We don't pick it up in Zechariah 12. We don't pick it up in Ezekiel 8 to 11. We don't pick it up in Zechariah 14. We don't pick it up anywhere. Now, God gave me a few landmarks by telling it to me. One is that the times, and the half a time, it's not 42 months or 1260 days. It references captivity. The first captivity was Egypt. Next was Babylon. The third was Rome in 70 AD. And the last captivity is called the half captivity. And we find this plain as day in Zechariah 14, which is called the Great Day of the Lord, which is Gog and Magog. And that shows us that half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. The remainders remain in Jerusalem. Nothing happens to them. Which takes us back to Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11, which describes the same events. It phrases the abomination that maketh desolate, or the abomination of desolation, as the image that provoketh to jealousy. And this image is set up in the northern gate between the inner courtyard and the outer courtyard. And this gives us reasonably strong, well, it lines up very well with Revelation 11, and I'll explain that quickly. That won't take a long time. We're going to have to go into the Hebrew a lot with Daniel, because it's all botched up by the English translators, and I think you'll enjoy that because it opens up some stuff. Revelation 11:1, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel that stood saying, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. So measure the temple, the next temple, the altar, which would be outside the temple in the inner courtyard, and to the east and south of the steps to get in on the eastern side of the temple, and them that worship therein. But the court, which is without the temple, leave out and measure it not, for it is given unto the heathen, the goyim, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months, which is a 3.5 year period. Now, the courtyard, which is without the temple, I would assume would be the inner courtyard. And you'll never understand these passages unless you read Ezekiel 8 to 11, which the churches never understood, can't grasp, and never talk about. But you miss so much without Ezekiel 8 to 11, it's ridiculous. The churches run around in the dark with these things. And then it says, and I will give, and the word power is added into it, and the word unto is not there. Okay? So what this is really saying is, I will give my 2 witnesses. God gives them like he gave Yeshua. They're his sons. When you read Zechariah 4, the last verse, the candlesticks and the olive trees, he says these are the Shnaim, which means 2, B'nai, which means sons, Yitzar, which means clarified oil, the olive oil. And that's the anointing oil. That's what's used for anointing. So what he's saying is they're my 2 anointed sons. This doesn't escape the church because plenty of them understand Hebrew. They just don't want to reveal it to you. Okay? So he's saying, I will give my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days. That's 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth, which is a sign of mourning. Now, people assume that this is in the Hebrew temple. It could be. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the whole earth. Well, a prophet really needs to get killed in Jerusalem, so they might be in Jerusalem. This might happen there. All right. And then it says, these are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks, which is referencing Zechariah 4 directly, standing before the God of the whole earth, which is Father God Jehovah. All right. I don't want to go deep into the 2 witnesses, but let's go for some other foundation scriptures, okay? Give me a minute. Luke 13. Hang on, I gotta find the verse. Luke 13:33. Nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killeth the prophets, and stonest them that are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together as a hen gathereth her brood under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. And I verily say unto you, you shall not see me until the time come when you shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. This pretty much happens after Gog and Magog. So the actual tribulation on the nations is going to coincide very closely with Gog and Magog. Now, in Revelation 11, let me find the right verse. First clue is it says that the 2 martyrs, the 2 witnesses, prophesy. Then it says that it rained not during the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit make war against them, and shall overcome them, and kill them. And their bodies shall lie in the street of the great city. So, hang on a second. Check a verse. In verse 10, they're defined as prophets. So I'll read. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. Okay, so they're prophets and they have to die in Jerusalem. So they probably actually, I'm reversing here, do die, and changing my position, forgive me, but they apparently do die in the temple. Now that does not mean the beast and the false prophet and the talking statue are in the temple. Because we have evidence that's very hard to overcome to make that case. But it appears that it happens that way. Now, the beast could be at the temple or something like that. I'm trying to work through this, and it's hard because I'm by myself. And the way the Lord really teaches you is you dig it out of the scriptures yourself. Because when you dig it out of the scriptures and you wrestle with it, no, this can't be, and you, over time, finally get to the bottom of it and get the right explanation, then you have it. When somebody just comes over to you and says, this is what this means, you don't have it. And then you start getting blown about by every wind of doctrine and changing your position. And that's not good. And that's how the church teachers teach them. The explanations they give for their doctrines are shabby at best. They're assumptive, they're not corroborated, they don't do much. They just throw it out there. See, the reason why the church can't get it is because it's not real. But I'll give you just a very fast blast of scripture on this. It says in Galatians 5:19 to 21, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness. The church really doesn't know what that means. Lasciviousness, idolatry, well, I won't get into that. Witchcraft, hatred, variance. Now, variance means they vary. They have different doctrinal statements. That's where they break this commandment in the New Testament. Okay? When they go pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, amillennial, which are all wrong, they're doing variants, and they take it to such an extreme. Like they say, well, we don't all know, nobody knows, so we accept them as valid even though they hold different doctrines. So they build a house divided unto itself called churchianity, and it can't stand. And in modern years, the root and the base and the foundation of this has been in America. It was in Europe many years ago, but except for the Catholic Church, the church is not really flourishing in Europe very much. Okay. They have the Anglican Church, which is headed by King Charles, which is nonsensical. And he's supposedly in the hospital for prostate surgery. I believe he's probably really in the hospital, but believe me, it ain't for prostate surgery. Not with that one. Some of you know what I'm talking about. I don't like to get into that stuff because people have so much trouble believing it. He's the head of the Anglican Church, so I mean, how real could that be, all the churches accept the other person's doctrines. They don't pay attention to a house divided unto itself shall not stand. See, they can't get the real doctrine. Without the Lord, you're not going to get it. The doctrine, the real doctrine, and the prophecy, the real doctrine is openly out there. Thou shalt not. That's right there. They violate that. With variance. See, once you start writing a doctrinal statement, you're saying why you're different from the other churches, and that's variance. And they all have doctrinal statements. And it goes over the head of the people that attend these churches because they don't study the scriptures. They're, for the most part, those that are called and not chosen. Broad and wide is the road to destruction, and many be that find it. That's them. Straight and narrow is the way, and few be that find it. That's you guys. Okay. We got variance, emulations, wrath, strife, and then we come to seditions. Now they break most of these, but I'm just focusing on the easy ones. Seditions is more of an older English word, and it means division. And when you have denominations with different doctrinal statements, you're committing division. A house divided unto itself shall not stand. And then it says heresies, which is sort of related to divisions. Envyings, murders. Notice that violating these commandments are right up there with murders, drunkenness, revelings. That's like, wild parties and things, And such like of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Now, the word for kingdom is basilio. It means the power or the reign of God. It's saying they're not in. Because they keep doing these things and they don't stop. They don't fear God and they don't follow the word of God. The Messianic congregations are just as guilty. They're in umbrella organizations, which is a denomination in disguise, and they have varying doctrinal statements. It's the same thing. Okay? Do the rabbis have this? Yeah, they have it too. They follow this rabbi, that rabbi, they all do it. Okay. So these people are not going to make it. You have to understand that. Because to say they are going to make it, oh, God has mercy and this and that, what you're telling me is God's a liar. He says these things and he doesn't really mean them. They don't repent of these things, they keep it up. They don't stop it. They don't even talk about stopping it. They don't pay any attention to this. Okay? 2 Corinthians 11:4. They have another gospel, they have another Jesus, and they have another spirit. And they don't have the Holy Spirit, they got an unclean spirit. And they worship the December 25th Jesus, which is Tammuz, the sun god, who you're going to hear about later. And what day would you worship Tammuz, the sun god, on? But Sunday. And his mother in mythological text is Esther, Easter. Easter's no biblical holiday. Yeshua was not born on December 25th. Tammuz, the sun god, calls him. It's Satan, it's a joke. But it's not a joke to them. They take it seriously. And that's why they run around with all these cockamamie, crazy doctrines. Okay? Because they don't know the real gospel. Their teachers don't know the real gospel. All right. Romans 1:16. If then I do that which I would not, I'm in the wrong chapter, sorry. Romans 1. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and that word would be Judah, who's in Israel now, in part, and also the Greek. So the Greek is generally meaning non-Israeli, because the way it worked is God chose Israel, and before Yeshua, they referred to everybody that was not Israel as a heathen because they didn't serve God. All right? So, the salvation comes to the Jew first. And you see this in Zechariah 12:10. Gog and Magog, at the end of it, the two witnesses are there, and God pours his spirit out on the house of David and Jerusalem, the people in Jerusalem. Now they're believers. And they look upon the one whom they have pierced. And then they start mourning. Well, when they went to the crucifixion, when Yeshua died, they certainly didn't mourn for him, did they? So let's get away from idiot stories the church tells us, okay? It's unfulfilled. And then John 6:40 tells us those that are believers that see Yeshua shall have eternal life, and they get it right then and there. And you see them fighting. The feeble fight like King David, who killed Goliath and a bear and a lion. Okay? And the house of David fights like the angel of the Lord, who was with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness, and he killed 130,000 in one day. So it's all there. That's your eternal life. Okay? When you see him, you shall be like him. They get a incorruptible body that doesn't war against the flesh. Now, when you're a believer in Yeshua, and you're not Israelite born, you become a member of Israel. It says that in Ezekiel 47, the last 3 verses. I can read that. So shall you divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. This is dividing the land after Gog and Magog. And it shall come to pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you. They shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel, and it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall you give him his inheritance, saith Adonai Yehovah. Okay? So you become like the native Israelite. Now, in the next temple, in Ezekiel 48, where, well, I don't want to hunt this down, I'll tell you, it has 12 gates. I'll find it. I have to look for it. Hang on a minute. I think it's here, Ezekiel 48:31. And the gates of the city shall be after the names of the tribes of Israel. 3 gates north, and 1 for the gate of Reuben, 1 for Judah, blah, blah, blah. So, what gate are you going to go through if you're not incorporated into Israel? I have no idea. You won't have a gate. How are you going to get in? Now, let's take this concept to Revelation 21. And we're in verse 21 of Revelation. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was of 1 pearl. So these are giant pearls. And the street of the city was paved, was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. And I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. Okay? And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. Now it says something earlier. Let me find this. I think we got to go to verse 12. And it reads like this: New Jerusalem, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and the gates 12 angels, at the gates 12 angels, and the names written therein, which are the name of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. So it has the same thing like the wall around the city. It has 12 gates, and each gate named after one of the tribes, and guarded by an angel, made out of a giant pearl. So which gate are you going to go in if you're not incorporated into one of the tribes of Israel, as per Ezekiel 47? Now these are the things that are never revealed by the church. They don't want you to know. They want you to have replacement theology, which is sinful. You're taking God's people and condemning them with all the curses, and taking all the good stuff and dumping it on the church. Oh, we're going to get raptured, and, it's absurd, Yeshua said 4 times in John 6:39, 40, and 44, and 54 that all the people that God gave him shall be raised up at the last day. The last day in simple terms means there's no more days. So it's after Satan's released and gathers them as the sand of the sea, and Father God Jehovah burns the whole place up. Thus we meet him in the air and go on clouds to heaven for eternity, because there's no place to stand on. And that's the last day when the dead are raised and everything. So everybody goes up to heaven on the same day, the last day. They're on the moon days. It's taken from the Feast of Tabernacles, which is 7 days, plus 1 day, the 8th day, the great day, which is the 8th day. So the 7th day is like the millennium, and the 8th day is, it says in Revelation 20, after the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be released, and he gathers them like the sand of the sea to surround Jerusalem and New Jerusalem, and then the end of everything comes, and God burns them up, in the earth and the atmosphere and the universe and everything else. Okay? That's it. That's what happens. This whole place is nothing but a testing ground. That's it. And while it seems like a long time to you, having run up a bunch of years myself, I can tell you that it goes very fast. Very fast. And I could tell you lots of things that I've learned with the years, like, people chase prosperity, like they go to college, and then they go to medical school, and then they do a residency for 5 years, and by the time they start working, they're almost 30 years old. And how long are they going to work? 30, 35 years? It goes fast. And then what? Well, they got plenty of money. They're not working anymore. And they begin to deteriorate. And their wives begin to deteriorate, or their husbands, vice versa. And that's not fun. But that comes with old age. Old age is part of the curse. Okay? And that's what happens. And they... Yes.
Sorry, I'm running an errand. I don't know what Shoshana's schedule is. She might be in the house when you come out.
No worries. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. So, it ends badly. We're living in Satan's world. So what happens? You grow up. You got to go to school when you're 5, 6, 7, whatever. You go to school. School stinks. It's not a natural, normal thing. It's Satan's thing to brainwash you. Okay? And it happens all over the world. And you go for so many years and you finish and you have no skill set. What can you do when you get out of high school? Nothing. Nothing. What do you do? Then you got to go try to find a way to make your way through the world. And then a lot of people go to college like I did. And you get a little bit of skill set. And then I went and got a master's in business, and it explained and showed me how to run a business. And then I basically, after a few years of working, after the MBA, I saw how stupid it was to work for people and how treacherous they can be. Yeah, I just went on my own. Thank God I did. Today I'd be incapable of working for these people with their values and morals. I couldn't do it. But, Satan themes things for people, like in the movies and the TV. Love. Love is everything. Really? Look at the divorce rate in the world. It's like in most places, well, in I think America, it's about 50%. Love doesn't. Like the ultra-Orthodox Jews say, oh, the secular people go around and say, oh, I love you, I love you. And they basically do arranged marriages, which is reasonably biblical. That's how it was done. So the way they do it, I've had an Orthodox guy explain it to me. They do it when they're young, quite young, because they like to be fruitful and multiply, so the rabbis can increase the ranks of their memberships in their Talmudic synagogues. And they bring two kids together. A boy and a girl. Usually they're young. They could be late teenagers or teenagers even, and they could be low 20s. Usually they're not going to reach mid-20s without getting married. So they would bring them together in somebody's house, typically. So the way that would work is they put them in a sitting room, a dining room, or a living room together, facing maybe across a coffee table. They're not going to sit next to each other on a sofa. They'll face each other and they'll try to talk. Some of these kids don't have much social skill set. They'll try to talk, and the adults will be in an adjoining room with the doors open. So from the girl's family and the guy's family, they'll be sitting there they could be having anything, coffee, tea, junk to eat. They probably wouldn't drink hard liquor or anything. They maybe would drink beer, some of them, but probably not. And they put the kids together for an hour or 45 minutes. And then they tell the kids it's time to leave, and they break them up. And then the parents go, so what do you think? And if the kids could say a number of different things, they could say, "Oh, I can't look at her. She's, I can't deal with this," or "I can't look at him. He's just too. I can't stand him. I couldn't do it." Then the parents drop it and they go look for somebody else. Now they have what's called a matchmaker, like Fiddler on the Roof. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. It still goes on today. And they'll go through more kids, so the matchmaker usually gets a little money and to go to work, and then if the matchmaker comes up with a match that works, they get a commission of some sort usually. But they're going to take front money. They're not going to work without front money. They don't know what they're in for. So then they get two kids put together, and then all of a sudden they break them up when they meet, and the kid says, "Well, yeah, I kind of like her," and then she says, "Yeah, he's kind of nice," and then they'll do it again. They'll meet maybe in the other family's house, or usually it's in the peace and quiet of the house, but they're not going to sit next to each other on a sofa, and they're not going to touch, and they're not going to kiss or hold hands, and they're going to talk more. They're going to start talking about how many kids you want. They're both going to say, "Oh, at least 4, maybe 10, or something like that, And not all of them have 8 or 10 kids. You see it. You see 12 even. But they're usually going to have more than, they'll have 4 or 5, They just bang them out rapid fire, And the family helps take care of the kids when you got a bunch of little ones running around. It's really hard. You see the men go shopping frequently in the woman's home because she's got 3 small kids with her. Now, when the oldest kids get old enough, which is probably, 13 or 14, they start using them more and more to take care of the little kids. Feeding, changing, watching them. So that enables them to have more kids. All right, so they talk about various things in life, and then maybe they have a third meeting. And usually that's about it. If they seem to be in place, then they say, "Okay, we got a match." And then they set a date, which could be 3-4 weeks later. They don't mess around. They're not going to go 6 months. And their party line doctrine says, we love the one we marry. We don't marry the one we love. They don't put much credence in this love business. And they're right. They're right. Because people don't understand what love is. In the world, it's, what do people get married for? A lot of them are dumb enough to just go for physical attraction. There was a secular song when I grew up in the 60s and I was a teenager, and it said, went like this: "Never make a pretty woman your wife," right? It was a black guy singing. It was a very funny song. And he elaborated in the song. And, what his implication is that other guys are going to hit on the woman, and she's going to get a big head, and you're going to have trouble with her. If you get a woman that's not so beautiful, then you're not going to have these kind of problems. She's going to be glad to have you and grateful and be a better wife. And I'm not saying that's the way it is, but for some people it is. So a lot of them do go out and chase the physical attraction, which is a dangerous game to play. Women know better from this than men. Women know that they could get involved with a guy that's super good looking, and he could be a nightmare. Men don't get this too often. When they get older, they do, but not when they're younger. this way are more intuitive and smart. Then a lot of women and men are going to gravitate towards a good living. So the woman sees a guy, he's a computer engineer, makes $147,000 a year. Oh, this is nice, I'll have a good living. Well, that's short-sighted. You don't know how long that's going to last and this and that. Other races are very critical of the other person's health. How are her teeth? How's her vision? How's her hearing? How does she walk? What do her knuckles look like? What do her toes look like? What does her back look like? They're very into the health of the potential spouse. This too could be a mistake because you don't know what's going to happen down the road. It's silly. Then a lot of people marry because they have a common interest. Cops tend to marry other cops. Now that there's a lot of female cops, they tend to marry each other. They tend to think that they aren't able to live with a civilian. They're used to running around with the gun and the badge, and they only want someone else with the gun and the badge. And so the person they marry understands them in terms of the gun and the badge and the tolls it could take on their life, but they don't, that's not grounds to get married. Or doctors tend to marry other doctors. Professors in university ditto like to marry other professors. Accountants, the same, bartenders like to marry bartenders, I grew up in Florida. I didn't grow up, I was in Florida after I left Israel, my first time living here in Northwest Florida, and I was making lots and lots of money at that time, ludicrous amounts of money. And I had Porsches, Mercedes, BMW, house on the water, all that junk. And I was single and I was looking, And a lot of women would consider me as a prize that made a good living. Like they were a doctor or they had a business. I remember several instances of this, and they made good living. They didn't quite make what I made, but they made good. Maybe some of them did. I was up there. And they hated dating guys there. There was no good employers there, really, except the military. And, so there was a lot of guys there that did blue labor, and they didn't make a lot of money. And they were just getting by. And these women would have nice cars like I did, nice clothes, take vacations, and these guys did. And they were really repulsed by guys that didn't have enough money. They didn't like them as much as them. They didn't want to date them at all. But not at all. They would just, I ran into this so many times. Now, the guys typically got up in the morning, went to work, made a living, paid their rent, had a car, but they didn't know from taking a serious vacation. They wouldn't go to Europe, they wouldn't take cruises, they wouldn't go to Mexico, they didn't do this and that. They'd go to Disney once every 20 years, that kind of thing, and they wouldn't eat out in nice restaurants, and the women had money to do that, and they didn't want them. So they were rejecting these people left, right, and center. That's not good either. Now, that was not the same as a poor woman that wants to marry a rich guy. These women had a good living, like $250,000 a year, stuff like that, right? And they just didn't want to hear about getting involved with some guy that was making back then, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. They didn't want to hear about it. They wouldn't date him. And there was a marked shortage of guys that had any kind of money like them because there was not much industry in that area. It was a conglomeration of a modest amount of retail, no high-tech industry. There was some military bases there, but the military men didn't make a good living. And there was a lot of tourist businesses. And some of these women owned and operated tourist businesses and made out very good. Like they had a restaurant, bar, nightclub, or stuff like that, you know. Trying to think what these women did. I can't even remember. I know one had a nightclub, restaurant, bar. Another was a doctor. I came across a bunch of them, you know. And that was a weird thing I never knew existed in life, you know. But it does. So people tend to go and seek marriage. A lot of it is influenced by Satan's TV and movies. And Satan portrays this love heavily in the movies because it shatters. It's not real. They don't understand it. If two people love Jehovah and love Yeshua HaMashiach and they come together, they're going to make it work. That's the truth. The way it works with, now there's people in these type of situations that have problems. I see this in Israel. Israel, living here in Israel, breaks you down physically, breaks you down mentally, emotionally, everything. Okay, and for many it breaks them down spiritually. They fall off. And they stay in Israel and they start practicing church doctrines and stuff like that. And their families disintegrate, the children wind up pulling away from God. See, when you preach the false gospel, you're preaching the doctrines of demons. And that's going to destroy your family. So the Orthodox are closer to it than the other people are. Now, I don't know. The Amish may follow similar practices. I don't know. Other cults may follow similar practices. I don't know. But they say we love the one we married. So they get them married and then they make a commitment. And it's artificially enforced because if they break away from the other and divorce, it's allowed in their doctrine, okay? They don't need to have adultery for a ground of divorce. They just say we grew apart, we don't share a common interest, we don't get along, there's friction, this and that. So then the rabbi will say, so why stay together, divorce? Now, the divorced man and the divorced woman is going to have a considerable amount of trouble getting remarried in this ultra-Orthodox environment. But they do get remarried, okay? So they don't follow Bible precepts. They follow Old Testament. The guy gives her a get, which is, here, I'm divorcing you paper. And when they get married, they have a wedding document, okay? A ketubah it's called, and they usually make an elaborate one and they put it on the wall framed, you know, on parchment with an artist and gold ink and all that, you know. But they'll make a contract. The rabbis will lead them to make a contract as to what happens if the marriage doesn't work, who gets what money and all this stuff. And they do that. But there's, most of the time, there's children involved. You know, you guys need to know this about Israel, you know. Most of the time, there's children involved, and that becomes difficult. But then again, if you got a divorced guy, and let's say he's 38, 40 years old, and a divorced woman who's 35, they're not in their prime, but they're not old. They got kids, they both got kids. So they bring it together, and they try to make it work. Does it work? I guess sometimes it does, you know. Usually people that get married the second time going to be a lot, well, you would hope, would be a lot more careful than the first time. The ones that are on the third or fourth time usually don't know what they're doing. A lot of people that get divorced are in an extreme hurry to get married again because that's all they know. You know? So when the woman is a girl, she learns how to take care of small children, her brothers and sisters. She learns how to help the mom with the housework. They don't put a big emphasis on going to a secular education. In Israel, they stopped secular education in the 8th grade. So they know enough about, geography, arithmetic, reading, vocabulary, and then they're done. They go into, the women who frequently just stop working and they help mom at the house, and the men go to the yeshiva and learn the Talmud, which is not the Bible. And they don't have secular skills, which helps the rabbis keep them in. So if they want to fall away from it, they don't have a way to go. What are they going to do? They're not engineers, teachers, accountants. What are they going to do? What are they going to, work in a restaurant cleaning dishes? They don't have it. And they get shunned. When they leave the ultra-Orthodox, it's good you learn these things. They get pushed out of the community. They're no more in there. The family does what's called sit shiva. It's 7. So they go, this is not biblical, this is their tradition. They sit on a wooden stool and they don't shave and they cover the mirrors in the house and nonsense like this for 7 days. So they'll sit shiva for their son or daughter that left the cult to go into the world, and they're shunned. Now, they can come back, but it's like a conversion process. They're watched very closely. They're going to have frequent meetings with the rabbi, like weekly, long meetings. There's going to be reports from the other members of the family and friends. And after, I guess, about 6 months or a year, they're accepted back in. I don't remember the term they have for this. They have a term. But they take them back in, and I would guess by the 2nd, 3rd year, it's pretty well forgotten. But getting married, one of them, the others don't want to take a chance and marry him. Now, if you are in the ultra-Orthodox and you don't observe the practices of the ultra-Orthodox cult you're in, to the T, they may not throw you out. If you're going through the motions, you're wearing the standard black coat, white shirt, hats, and this and that, and you're observing some holiday, they'll leave you alone in there, But what you'll find is their kids, the other people won't let their kids marry your kid. Now, if your kids are already married and you decide you want to become a Jack Orthodox, to steal the term from the Mormons, Jack Mormon, and you want to become a Jack Orthodox, well, they probably won't throw you out as long as you're doing the basic minimum. But, you might, if you're going to try to take on other habits that they don't like, have a TV set with cable and watch the movies and secular TV, they may not throw you out. But they're not going to like it. So what a lot of them might do, if they can conduct business, is not live in a concentrated Orthodox area. Go someplace, perhaps in a city, anywhere in the world, where they have access to a rabbi who may not be ultra-Orthodox, might just be an Orthodox rabbi, And they'll keep wearing the black clothes and the white shirt and go to that synagogue, and then there's nobody around to keep track of them. And he goes to the movies, he goes to the bars, he um, goes out not wearing the black coat and the white shirt. And, they have very odd practices with fornication and adultery. They go to prostitutes, and that's okay. I think they reference it with concubines with Solomon or something, but they do that. And that doesn't get you thrown out. And they'll take on a girlfriend who's not Jewish. And they'll even move her in. Now, if they're doing it while they're married, the wife and the kids could come on him and say, we're going to disown you if you don't stop. In other words, we're going to sit shiva for you. Well, I'm confusing Yiddish and English. The term in Yiddish is shit shiva, in Hebrew is sheva. Yiddish counts different. Ein, zwei, drei, 1, 2, 3. French is un, deux, trois, echad, shtaim, shalosh is Hebrew, So it's different, and then sometimes it's very similar. Okay. But when I grew up, they were talking Yiddish all over the place. My family, in the house, in the stores, in the streets. The people came to America in my generation. Mostly the grandmas and the grandpas came to America before World War One, and most of the kids' parents were born in America, so the parents were American citizens, as were we. But the parents of the grandparents taught the parents Yiddish, and their kids, which would be our parents, went to American schools and universities and knew very good English, but they also knew fluent Yiddish. They didn't write it, but they knew Yiddish, and they would listen to, in the Catskill Mountains on vacation, they had comedians there that would sometimes tell jokes all in Yiddish, and the parents would laugh. They knew it. We had more of a Yiddish I used to joke with my grandparents and say, talk English, it's America, talk English, and they used to laugh at me. But their natural tongue, the grandparents, was Yiddish. And they were all alive then, so we heard Yiddish all over the place, The clerks in the stores, the food stores and the clothing stores, all the stores in the neighborhood, knew Yiddish, or they wouldn't be able to communicate with these people. So they used to read the newspaper called The Forward, which was in Yiddish. Now the characters of written Yiddish are the same characters as Hebrew, but the Yiddish words mean nothing to a Hebrew speaker. Just like you might read French or Italian, and it has the same characters as English, but you don't know what the heck it says. So I remember getting on planes years ago on El Al, and they'd hand out newspapers, and they were handing out the Yiddish newspaper to these people, the Israelites, and they were screaming, we can't read this, it's Yiddish. Stewardess didn't know. It was Delta that did it, yeah. The stewardess didn't know what they were talking about. It looked like Hebrew to her. So Hebrew has nothing to do with the Bible. It's not a biblical language. It's a diaspora language, and it means nothing. I had no idea I was going to be teaching you about life in Israel today, but that's where I'm being led. So, yeah, they don't, they got their own weirdness, But in the Bible, they were basically doing arranged marriages, and I think that'll come back. Dating is not a good idea because it's going to lead to lascivious behavior, petting, and it's going to lead to possibly fornication and all kinds of problems, okay? So they don't do that. They don't, and I don't think it's a good idea. When these two people that they're matchmaking come together, again, it'll be in a room in the apartment. It could be the dining room, it could be the living room, the sitting room, it could be anywhere. And there's going to be other people in the house in an adjoining room with the doors wide open. So they can talk across a coffee table or something quietly, and nobody's going to hear them, but they're not going to get anywhere near touching. That they're not going to, and that's not a bad practice. Dating is a fairly dumb idea. And then the kids get into, well, we'll date, and it's only been a year, we're not going to get married yet, we'll go another 2 or 3 years, and then they break up, and then they wind up being old, and they get married when they're older, and that's inconsistent with the be fruitful and multiply. They want the people marrying young, They wouldn't think anything's wrong with a girl getting married at 16 or something like that, or maybe 15, probably 16. I don't know the break off, but probably around there they wouldn't see anything wrong because she's grown up and she could start having lots of babies. So the Orthodox women tend to wear secular clothing. They try to dress their women very nice, and they'll wear jewelry. Do they wear perfume? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe they do. I don't know. And they'll buy nice, expensive clothing. A lot of them will watch their figure, and a lot of them don't. And a lot of them will shave their head and put a wig on, which is absurd, but they do it. And there was a book written years ago. You could find it on Amazon or used bookstores. It's called The Hole in the Sheet. The Hole in the Sheet. And that's how they have sex. That's what the rabbis do to them. They tell them that the woman gets in the bed and she puts a sheet over herself with an appropriate ripped hole in the sheet or cut with a scissor, whatever. And that's how the guy does the deed, through the hole in the sheet. And he'll be usually partially dressed or something. This is just so absurd. So they've reduced the marriage bed, like Song of Solomon, they've reduced that to just a reproduction ritual. That's pretty sad. Now, not all of them are that way, just some of them. And they deny a lot of them deny the hole in the sheet. I wouldn't believe it. They still do it. And a lot of them deny the women shaving their head and then putting a wig on. But you see them in Israel, and you could see that those are wigs. You could tell. And they wear hats over the wigs, and it's a cultic world. But it's huge in Israel, and it's weird, and it's probably gonna continue, and they're probably gonna cause a lot of the problems we're gonna see in the temple. A lot of them follow Kabbalah or Kabbalah, which is a witchcraft book that they teach. They used to go door to door and ask you if you wanted to learn Kabbalah, and then they come to your house and teach you Kabbalah, which is Jewish witchcraft, basically. And they call the Kabbalah the Torah, which I'm sure God just really loves, And they call the Talmud the Torah, which I'm sure God really dislikes as well. It's not the Torah. So these are some of the problems you guys are going to encounter when you come here. And you guys from America are going to be here pretty quick. I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing you, by, at the latest, by or before August this coming summer in 2024. So these people are still going to be here. The 2/3 aren't going to happen yet. And you'll get used to them. Now, secular Israelis are, I had no idea I was going to be doing this today. Secular Israelis are much like Americans with, but again, well, they'll eat differently, they drive differently, kamikaze style, I might add. They don't have a lot of accidents, but they drive like kamikaze. They're different and they're not so different. Okay. They have a love for money. They put up with the religious, Now there's another type of Jew here that's not secular and not orthodox, and there's a lot of this in Israel. And they go to synagogue on Saturdays, maybe consistently or maybe every now and then when there's a holiday. And they'll keep the house with clean food, they call it kosher. They won't work on the Sabbath and things like that. And that doesn't mean they're going to follow Bible principles at all. And some of them are very mean and nasty and vindictive and vengeful and like to take advantage of people that were not born and raised here and discriminate and all that. They're horrible. Okay, I want to tell you that. A lot of them are horrible and a lot of them are not. I find the ones that are married or were married to a foreigner that came to live in Israel are usually good friends. But the others, they shun you. They think you're dirty. Some, very few, will accept you as a messianic. Most don't want to hear about it. They think you're here to convert Israel to churchianity or something like that. They don't know the difference between Catholic, Baptist, Evangelical, Pentecostal, and Messianic congregation. They don't know the difference. They use the words like im natsrim, which means they're with the one from Nazareth. So they all lump them together. Why am I telling you all this? You'll find them very loving to their children, even the nasty ones. Will be very tight-knit to the family. Adultery is fairly rampant and widespread. Abortions can be had. All the woman has to do to get an abortion is show up at the doctor place and make a statement that the baby is not from the father. In other words, I had extramarital sex. They don't do a DNA test, and she makes a statement, and they say, okay, your abortion's next Tuesday at 11:30, and that's all it takes. The health care plan that's mandatory that you have to buy by law will cover some abortions. I think if you get to your third abortion or your fourth abortion, they probably start making you pay something. But they do the abortions. The military does abortions, I think, for the women in the military up to 3. And then after that, they got to pay, I think. The Arabs that are citizens here, you probably won't have much contact with. They live with themselves. A tremendous amount of them are what I would call Jack Muslims. They got to say they're Muslims because they'll not fit in unless they say that. And they don't take it that seriously. They probably won't have much of anything to do with you at all. Some are nice, some aren't that nice, but they're not bad. But they're not going to be your friends. They keep to themselves, I'm thinking what else I could talk about. Take a quick break. I'll come back and see if I'm getting Ed to go through with more Bible or keep educating you about this. I don't know. Remember, there's a reason for it. I need to open the door, my friend. How am I going to do that? You guys enjoying it? Sleeping in front of the heater, are you, huh? I got the electric heater on with the electrodes, and the dogs are squatting right there in front of it. I mean, like 2-3 inches away, having a good time. I don't know how they don't get too hot, but they like it. I don't think they like this cold weather. Okay. All right. So I think we'll go through some more scriptures and some things I wrote down this morning that I think will be helpful. Okay. Romans 1:16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to every one that believeth. Okay. To the Jew first, and also the Greek. So, what this is telling us is that it happens to the Jews first. Okay? So, from here, I could begin to build, I think, a valid doctrine. Why are you guys receiving, the Jew means Judah, receiving the true gospel if you're not Jews? That's a good question, isn't it? Oh, I think there's another scripture. All right. When we read Zechariah 12, which is Gog and Magog, it's still being depicted as Judah and Jerusalem. So we have not gotten the land back yet, nor has the second Exodus happened yet. One of the stumbling blocks I had years ago is if Zechariah 12 happens before Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38, 39, then the second Exodus would have to happen after that. And it just makes things confusing. It doesn't look right. It just doesn't get a fit. When we read Isaiah 65:25, it says, "They shall not harm in my holy mountain." I'll read it. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith the Lord. This is at the close of Gog and Magog. This is when he makes the new heavens and the new earth. And there's a blood sacrifice to the animals who eat the dead bodies from the attack. And the animals are not killing each other anymore, so they're obviously vegetarian. So I don't see how we would be doing animal sacrifices at this time. This leads me heavily to believe that Yeshua returns right around this period at the end of Gog and Magog, because he is a high priest in the order of Melchizedek, and he made one sacrifice and no longer needs to make sacrifices. So in New Jerusalem it says there's no temple in Revelation 21 or 22. The temple may still be left there as like a museum or something, but there's no more sacrifices when he comes. So this is what, it's a little bit of indirect logic, but this is where it leads me. So that means that Gog and Magog is not exactly the tribulation, but the tribulation should happen very close in time to that. That's the Jews' tribulation, which should come first, and then the nations get it. Okay? Let's go Matthew 24:14. Let me check the chat very quickly, see if I have questions or something. Maybe because we're Jews and just don't know it. That's the implication I was coming up with. I have a given Hebrew name. The parents gave the kids English names and Hebrew names. And my Hebrew name that was given to me by my parents is Moshe. That's what I prefer to go by. Okay. Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all goyim, heathen, and then shall the end come. This is the end of the age, not the end of the earth. This is the end of the age, like in Matthew 13. Okay? When it says in the previous verse, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. The word saved, let's see how Strong's puts this to English. Preserved as an eternal life, saved, well, be made whole. It's the eternal life. All right? And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. The two witnesses are going to be doing this, and it's going to happen before the end. And they're going to go to many nations in the world and preach this with signs and wonders following, so they know that God sent them. So I expect they'd have the raising from the dead, the healings, all this stuff. It'll be greater than what Yeshua did. He says, greater works than these shall you do. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. All right. Now we'll get into this in a little while. All right. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. So again, its timing is Judah. Let him which is not greater Israel, let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Because once the abomination of desolation is set up, the glory of God of Israel leaves the temple, the offerings and stuff stop, and shortly after that they attack Israel, which is in the field, return back to take. Well, that may not be true either, though. There is a delay. I don't want to say that. I don't think it's true. He may say to get out of Judah because there's going to be a lot of bad stuff going on in Judah. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Well, this is a very quick get out of town, I guess, so we have to take that into consideration. But woe unto them that are with child, that give suck in those days. Pray that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath. Now, I don't know how the church can justify that the law is dead, there is no more observance of the Sabbath day, when Yeshua is warning them well into the future, pray your flight's not on the Sabbath day. But they do. How do they justify having Yeshua return on a feast day when they say the law is dead? Well, that's their version, he returns on a feast day. I'm not so sure that has to be the case. But that's just foolish, but they're foolish. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. See, so the great tribulation is pretty well going to coincide with Gog and Magog. Okay? And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise Christ and false prophets, and they shall show great signs and wonders. Now, we've got tons of false prophets. When people say they have these dreams, like on social media, that's a false prophet because they're giving you prophetic dreams. Okay? Are all of them false prophets? I would assume most of the ones you see on social media are. Is it possible that people get prophetic dreams? Of course. A false Christ. Now, that's actually a false Messiah. And shall show signs and wonders. Now, they're not showing signs and wonders yet. Okay? Insomuch that if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. See, the very elect aren't going to be deceived. Those that are called but not chosen, they'll be deceived. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, this could be the actual second coming, because they're saying Christ is here, Christ is not there. So he's saying, no. When I come, the whole world's going to know it. So this may not be the appearing. This could actually be the actual second coming. For wheresoever the carcass is, there with the eagles, it's probably better vulture, be gathered together immediately after the tribulation. But eagles will eat carrion, dead body too, Immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun, so he's telling you this is Gog and Magog in the book of Joel. Shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. So, powers of the heaven is probably the lords of the air, the demons fly around in the atmosphere here. And this is in Joel chapter 2, this is the actual day of the Lord. The warning given before the actual day of the Lord is the sun goes dark and the moon goes to blood and nothing happens to the stars. That's telling you the day of the Lord is coming. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Now, this is not the second coming. I believe this to just be the sign of the Son of Man, as in Zechariah 12:10. All the tribes of the earth, it says, doesn't say that, it says tribes of Haaretz, which usually means the land of Israel, shall mourn, which is Zechariah 12, starting in verse 11 to the end of the chapter. They shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds of one end of heaven to the other. This is probably your second Exodus. Now learn a parable of the tree. When this branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that the summer is nigh. So likewise, you, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. We haven't seen all these things yet. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. That's the generation alive for these things, which would be us. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. You see, giving in marriage is pretty much matchmaking. The families matchmake for the kids. And knew not until, you see, we'll be marrying within our tribe. So it's going to go to matchmaking. And knew not until the flood came and took them away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. There shall two be in the field, one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. And it's Satan's house that's going to be broken up. So Satan's not going to know when Yeshua is going to return. Therefore, you're not either until it happens. Therefore, be you also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his Lord hath made ruler over his house, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find him doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. And if that servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayed his coming, and he shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, in an hour that he is not aware, and shall cut him asunder and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So the way you really get to, I'm trying to find what happened to my water bottle here. Oh, no, what do the kids do with it? No, it is. You've got to put all the different prophetic scriptures together and start to form a picture that way, like assembling pieces of a puzzle together to look at the whole picture. The way the churches teach is they just pull scriptures here and there and build their churchianity doctrines on the scriptures, you know, which is doctrines of demons. They don't get it right. All right. Okay. Go back on my notes. Mark 13:22. As we go, I'm going to be giving you pieces. For false Christs and false prophets shall arise and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. See, the two witnesses will be doing signs and wonders, and people will be following them because of the signs and wonders, and eventually fall away, just like they did with Yeshua. So God's going to enable the false prophets and false teachers to do signs and wonders, so that people chasing the signs and wonders will chase them. But take ye heed, behold. See, they'll reject the true gospel because they don't want to pay any kind of a price, like get rejected of friends and so forth, to follow the Lord. But take ye heed, and, you know, and that's consistent with the doctrines of grace. Oh, you know, we don't have to follow the scriptures, you know. But take ye heed, you know, we're not perfect. Why should the church be perfect? But Yeshua said he's coming back for an ecclesia without spot, wrinkle, or blemish. But they ignore that. But take you heed, behold, I have foretold you all things. But in those days, after that tribulation, okay, that's your Gog and Magog, which is the tribulation. The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven, the bad angels, shall fall. Although this could mean the actual stars. The powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. That's probably the unclean spirits. And so I think it means the stars literally don't give their light, and the unclean spirits will be shaken because they lose their kingdom. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then shall be seen his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. See, I think this is the gathering of the wheat into his barn, and the tares get tied up in bundles to be burned in the lake of fire later on. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that the summer is nigh. The summer's a harvest. So you in like manner, when it's actually a grape harvest, the wine, so you in like manner, when you shall see these things come to pass, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and that hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Take you heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the time is. For the Son of Man is as a man For the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants. Gave authority to his servants, and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. Watch you therefore, for you know not when the master of the house cometh, at even or at midnight, or at the cock crowing in the morning. So, see, the thing here is that you got tons of people that say, well, I don't follow prophecy. You know, it'll be what it'll be. See, this is incorrect doctrine. You're supposed to watch what's going on in the world. Lest coming suddenly, he find you sleeping. That's what could happen to these people that just kick back. Oh, you can't tell when prophecy is going to happen. Ignore it. You know, it'll come. And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. He's very clear about this, yet they don't do it. Hebrews 4:2. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard. See, this is why the churches don't have it. They don't have faith. Oh, they think they have faith, but they don't. If they had faith, they'd follow the scriptures, but they don't follow the scriptures. We'll take a look at Daniel 8:14. This will be interesting for you. Daniel's a sealed book, but I could help you with parts of it, but the bulk of it's not going to get opened yet. Okay, the Lord showed me that. It's going to be down the road when we need it. We don't really need it right now. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. The first thing you need to know is when this happens with the abomination and make it desolate, the sanctuary, the temple, does not get destroyed. It gets defiled. That's what they translate that word destroyed to make their Schofield stuff work. It's defiled. And that's consistent with Ezekiel 8-11. And they cleanse it. So we got some interesting things here to look at. On to 2,300 days in Daniel 8:14. It's what it says is Aleph is the word for thousand, Alephit, which is a plural, so it's saying thousands, and the assumption is it's 2,000. And then it says Shloshim, Shalosh Miod, which is 300. So it's a reasonably decent assumption to say it's 2300. But there's some more things in here that are interesting. Let me go into the Hebrew. It says, like the word odd, as far as, and then it says Erev, which is the evening, basically, where the sun, the shadows get long and you're transitioning from the day to the night. It's called the Erev. It means mixing. And then it says Boker, which means morning. So this is not exactly what the King James is telling us, to put it mildly. So the first word here is omer, to say or to speak. Al is to or unto. Then the odd is a period of space. Erev, Boker, evening, morning. I'm sorry, it's Alafim, which is not Alafid, Alafim, which is the plural for Aleph, for 1,000. Then it has verse Shalosh, which is and 3. And then it says Meot, which is hundreds, plural. Tzaddik. Make right. Tzaddik is make right. So it's basically saying 2,300 evening and morning. Now some people say that applies to the evening sacrifice and the morning sacrifice. So therefore there's 2 sacrifices in 24 hours. So it's 1,300 or something. No, it's half of 2,300, 1,150. That doesn't hold much water. When he says evening in Boker, I believe he's telling us that this means it's a day, a legitimate day. Now, the church world doesn't even put this in their translations. That's how bad they are. It goes in the King James, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. But why don't they tell us morning, evening, and morning? And it came to pass when even I had seen the vision and sought the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man, and I heard a man's voice between telling him he's going to understand the vision, but we're not going to get the vision from there. It's still sealed. Okay, keep going. When you do the 1,150 days, you're basically getting 3.19 years. using the biblical 360-day year, which doesn't take us anywhere in prophecy that we're going to get a line up to. 2,300 days is 6.39 biblical years, which also doesn't take us anywhere where we're going to get a significant lineup with prophecy. Daniel 12:11 is more direct. I'll read it. And from the time that the daily, it says sacrifice, shall be taken away, and that could be the morning and the evening, but taken away, because they do that every day in the morning and the evening, and taken away, and the abomination and make it desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days, 1,290. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305, 13:35. Okay. So it's still a sealed book, but we get more insight going there. Now, let's go into Daniel 9:27. There's some interesting things there. That's the last verse in Daniel 9. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Well, the word for covenant is the correct word. And the 1 week needs to be explored because it says Achad Shavua, it's 1/7. Let me take a fast break and we'll get into this. King James and the English are not very precise here. not just the King James is not precise, but the entire set of English translations that you're going to find are not precise. So it's not just the King James. All of them are messed up. And I would say they're messed up on purpose. Or it could be they don't know, but they're messed up. So he shall confirm. They say he shall confirm. And the word for that in the Hebrew is geber, which means to be strong. Doesn't exactly mean geber covenant, be strong covenant. Okay, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They got 6 words for 2 Hebrew words here. See how they get? And then it says with many. It doesn't say with, it says rab, with much. For one, which is echad, which is the correct word for one. And then it says shavua, which is a 7 period. Now, I looked this word up, and it tends to be used to mean a week. So it's for 1 week. That's where the word is used, for week. And in the midst, now that word's not right either. It's chetzi, which means half. A shekel is our denomination, like $1. And you have a $50 coin, and we have a half shekel coin, and it's called chetzi shekel. So it's not midst, it's half. Half of the shavua, half of the 7, half of the week. He shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation, that could be the morning and the evening, but it could be just the sacrifice and the oblation, to see. Chief, you be good, don't be bad. You got it, Chief? And to cease. Now the word for cease is Shabbat. So it really doesn't mean cease, it means to rest. Stop working. For the overspreading, what is that word really saying? See, it's screwed up. It's that kanaf word. Remember, it says Yeshua shall rise with healing in its kanaf. It's the outer border of the garment. Now, the kanaf is not restricted to just describing a garment. It's the outer border, the extremities. Okay? The overspreading of abominations, the outer border abomination. Now, that's depicted to us in Ezekiel 8 and 9. The image that provoketh to jealousy is set up in the northern gate between the inner and outer courtyards. Okay? Which no previous temple had such a layout. So they cover this up with saying overspreading for kanaf. See, the tassels of the tzitzit were all around the outer borders of the garment, which was like a robe, like here, and every outer border, or outer, like the hem or something like that, right? Not the way the rabbis do it. And then it says, he shall make desolate. Well, they're given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words for one Hebrew word, which is shemem, which is desolate. could also mean, according to Strong's, to stun or grow numb, stupefy. See, it's not really desolate. Shall stupefy even until the consumption, and that word, even until, let's look at that. That's 5704. That's all right, as far as, they do that all right. As far as the consumption, that could be the end, but it could also mean the devouring. Let's see. It could mean the destruction or consumption or the completion. And that determined, let's see that word, 2782. To point, to sharp, to wound. Where do you see that? To point, to sharp, to wound. I'll show you where you see that. You see it in Zechariah 12. See, they never point this out. Verse 2, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone, for all the people, all that burden themselves with it, shall be cut in pieces. You see it? This is in Daniel 9:27, Zechariah 12:8, 12:3. See, they never see this. I can open up some stuff, but the Lord's showing me that we're not getting everything right now because we don't need it. We're far away from, well, we're some years out. We don't need it right now. We got other things we need to be dealing with, predominantly the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, which we're weeks or months away from, with the harvest coming out of America. You guys come into Israel, and I don't see a stop in the wilderness in this harvest. I don't see it. It's not there. He shall cause, that doesn't mean he won't do it, but I'm not seeing it. I got to keep digging. As you notice, I'm digging all the time. Even the consumption, the determined shall. So determined is the cut. So it's the consumption that cuts them. That's the slicing and dicing in Zechariah 12:10. You got it? Shall be poured. Let's see what that word really means. How does Strong put it in English? Liquefy. Strong says it's liquefy, melt. How do we put that together? Their eyes shall melt in their sockets, and their skin dissolve off their bones. Gog and Magog. See how it ties Zechariah 12:10 to Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 39. The cutting shall melt upon that's probably reasonably translated, be desolate. Shemim, it's that word again, the ruined or the desolate is. So you see how they're the same? And I'm sorry I didn't get this earlier, but I know now, looking back in retrospect, the Lord was giving me hints all these years, and I wasn't being a good listener and student, and I was missing them. So I'm going back and showing you the hints that I was getting. So here's a good one, in Zechariah 13. think I covered this the other day, but it's worth another peek. I think it's verse 2, 13 verse 2. And it shall come, well, we'll go through 1. This is after the great day of the Lord is over. In that day there shall be a fountain opened to the house of David, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, for sin and for uncleanness. So I do not think we're going to need the red heifer, but maybe we will previous to this. I don't know. We could. And to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for uncleanness. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will cut off the names of the idols. So you could assume if the names are gone, the idols will be gone, I expect, out of the land. And they shall no more be remembered. And also I will cause the prophets, that's the false prophets, and the word for that is Navi, which is the correct word for prophet. And the, what does the cause word mean? The prophets, and the unclean spirits to pass out of the land. Now this is where I was stumbling. If this happened in Zechariah 12:10 and Zechariah 12, and Zechariah 12 preceded Gog and Magog, where would the unclean spirits be that were causing the people to rebel by putting their images on the walls of the temple and praying to Tammuz? If there was no unclean spirits, it would be pretty unlikely this would ever occur. So that was one of the things the Lord was showing me that I wasn't getting, I wasn't picking up on, I wasn't responding to, whatever you want to say. That Zechariah 12:10, well, Zechariah 12 is Ezekiel 8-11, is the great day of the Lord, is Gog and Magog, is the book of Joel. Because you'd need those unclean spirits there to accomplish this. Okay? So I'm, backtracking and showing you the mistakes I made so you could see that I think we're on to the truth, as far as I know. You're shouting out with no trouble. $364 back to 360 days. No, the Hebrew calendar year has always been 12 months of 30 days, and the months are called by the appearing of the new moon sliver. It's an observable calendar. Genesis 1:14, I think, tells you that, or it's 1:4. I think it's 1:14. Power, if possible, if find what you're looking for, and why very hard to get out of box. Heesh as to why you can get out of box. That shall come upon Jews. Not sure what you mean. I know you got typos, that's okay, but I get typos too. But I'm not sure what you mean. Sorry. Okay, let's see if I'm missing things in my notes. Romans 2:9, tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also of the heathen. But glory and honor and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile. So the bad stuff's going to happen to Israel first, and then I guess in the same time frame, the nations are going to have their downfall, their tribulation. But right around the end of that is going to come the second coming, and we have the millennium. But the two witnesses polished the enemies off in Zechariah 12, and that means they haven't been killed yet. So that would lend itself to the fact that they do get killed in the beast temple in Cyprus, Pergamos. See what I'm saying? Because it ends, and then it's good for the Jews. So that must be what that is. So I'll give you a little dose of Zechariah 8, because probably some of you need to be getting real familiar. I'm sorry, Ezekiel 8 to 11. You need to be getting real familiar with Ezekiel 8 to 11, or you're never going to get this part of end times. Never. You need this. And there stood before them 70. Whoa. No, I'm in the wrong verse. Okay, go verse 1. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, of the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my head, this is in the Babylonian captivity, and the elders of Judah before me, the hand of the Lord God fell there upon me. Then I beheld a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward of fire. So he wasn't seeing the face. From his loins even upward as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. And he put forth the form of the hand, and took me by a lock of my head. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looketh towards the north. The inner gate that looketh towards the north. That's the connecting gate between the inner courtyard and the outer courtyard on the north side, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy. Is this the statue that the false prophet gives life to and talks? I don't think so. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision I saw in the plain. Now that's that angel that God put his name in, Jehovah, and it's probably Michael. Then said he unto me, Son of man, lift up thine eyes now the way towards the north. And so I lifted up my eyes the way towards the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy in the entry. So it's talking about the altar's in the inner courtyard. So he's talking about the northern gate, which would be the entry going from the outer courtyard to the inner courtyard. And the entrance to the actual temple was contained in the inner courtyard. He said furthermore unto me, Son of man, seest thou what they do, even the great abominations that the house of Israel. What is this word, abominations? Something disgusting. Abominations works. even the great, and what's the word for great? Gadol, it's great. Abomination that the house of Israel committeth, here that I should go far from off my sanctuary. See, this was Satan's plan to get them to leave the sanctuary. Now, you know the angels were tested. Satan had iniquity found in him, and he stirred up the angels and got a third of them to help him attack Jehovah, and they all got thrown out of heaven. And that's how Satan operates. I'm sure he did it by lying and deceiving them, so they thought they could win. That I should go far off my sanctuary, but turn thee yet again, and thou seest great. So they were doing all, Satan stirred them up to do all these abominable things to get the glory of God to leave the temple. Then he could arrange to have it attacked, the people attacked. And he brought me to the door of the court, where I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. And then he looked in the hole of the wall, and he dug through the hole in the wall. And behold, the wicked abominations that they do here. And he went in, and he saw a form of creeping things and abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round about. There's still nothing about a talking statue, nor anything about a beast or a false prophet either. And there stood before them 70 men, and the ancients of the house of Israel, and in the midst of them stood Jazaniah, the son of Shaphan. We don't know who he is. He's just basically mentioned in these chapters here. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients or the elders of the house of Israel do in the dark? Every man in the chambers of his imagery, for they say, the Lord seeth not, the Lord hath forsaken the earth. He said also unto me, Turn ye yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. He brought me to the door, the Lord's house towards the north, and there sat women weeping for Tammuz. That's the sun god, the Sunday worshipped god, I assume, right? Whose mother is Easter, the December 25th one, right? Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn you yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, there were about 25 men with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, and they worshipped the sun towards the east. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? This is a like thing to the house of Judah. It's Judah's here now, see, still not Israel. That they commit the abomination which they commit here, for they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. They put the branch to their nose, therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them. Now, the next verse, the next chapter is 9. He cried also in my ears with a loud voice, saying, Cause them that have charge over the city to draw near, even every man with his destroying weapon in his hand. And behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lieth towards the north, and every man a slaughter weapon in his hand. And one among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side, and they went in and stood beside the brazen altar. Now that we're in the inner courtyard. And the glory of the God of Israel was gone up from the cherub whereupon he was to the threshold of the house. Now he's leaving the temple. So this bad time is about to start, the book of Joel. And he called to the man clothed with linen, which had the writer's inkhorn by his side. And the Lord said unto him, you got to pay attention to this, because if you don't understand this, you'll never, ever understand these prophecies, ever. That's why the church never teaches it. And Jehovah said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. And to the others he said in my hearing, go you after him through the city, and smite, let not your eyes spare, neither have ye pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, and come not near any man with whom is the mark, and begin at the sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house. And he said unto them, defile the house, and fill the courts with the slain. Go forth. And he went forth and slew in the city. And it came to pass, while they were slaying them, and I was left, I fell upon my face and cried, Lord God, wilt thou destroy the residue of Israel, pouring out of thy fury upon Jerusalem? And he said, their sin is great, exceedingly great. The land is full of blood, the city perverseness, for they say, Jehovah hath forsaken the earth, and the Lord it seeth not. And as for me, my eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense their way upon their head. And behold, the man clothed with linen, which had the inkhorn by his side, reported the matter, saying, I have done as thou hast commanded. Well, the angel was commanding him. It would have been Michael, I assume, the most powerful angel. So this goes on, and then we see the glory of God of Israel gradually leaving the temple, which would be the end of the sacrifices, because there's nobody to sacrifice to. And we go on, and then we'll get into Ezekiel 11. The first verse, moreover, the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the east gate of the Lord's house, which looketh eastward. And behold, at the door of the gate, 25 men, among them whom I saw, and he explains Jezaniah and the other guy, and we don't know who they are, they only appear here. And he goes and explains in verse 6, you have multiplied the slain in this city, and you have filled the streets thereof with the slain. Therefore, thus, I guess they're killing Messianics. I don't know who else they'd be killing, I don't know. Therefore, thus saith, Jehovah, your slain whom you have laid in the midst of it, they are the flesh, and this is the cauldron, but I will bring you forth out of the midst of it. You have feared the sword, I will bring the sword upon you, saith Adonai Jehovah. And I will bring you out of the midst thereof, deliver you into the hands of strangers, and you will execute judgment upon you. And will execute judgment upon you. You shall fall by the sword. I will judge in the border of Israel, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. Probably the last thing they'll know. This city shall not be your cauldron, and blah, blah, blah. I'm reading that, and I'm just going to try to go quicker. And you shall know that I am the Lord, for you have not walked in my statutes, neither executed my judgment, but have done after the manner of the heathen that are round about. I shouldn't have said blah, blah, blah. I didn't mean it that. Forgive me, Lord. Shem Yeshua Mashiach. I just wanted to get through this. And then we get to Son of man, thy brethren, even thy brethren, the men of the kindreds and all the house of Israel, holy are they unto whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, get you far from the Lord, unto us is this land given in possession. I'm sure this persecuting the Messianics. Therefore say, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, although I have cast them far off among the heathen, although I have scattered them among the countries, yet will I be to them a little sanctuary in the countries where they shall come. Speaking of the dispersion. Therefore say, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, I will even gather you from the people, and assemble you out of the countries where you have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel, and they shall come thither, and they shall take away all the detestable things thereof, and all the abominations thereof thence, and I will give them one heart, and will put a new spirit within you, and I will take the stony heart out of their flesh, and will give them a heart of flesh. I think this is the eternal life. It's definitely referencing Jeremiah chapter 31. That they may walk in my statutes and keep my ordinances and do them, and that they shall be my people. So they're going to be obedient. And I will be their God. But as for them whose heart walketh after the heart of their detestable things and abominations, I will recompense their way upon their own heads, saith Adonai Jehovah. Then did the cherubim lift up their wings, and the wheels beside them, and the glory of the God of Israel was over them above, and the glory of the Lord went up from the midst of the city, and stood upon the mountain which is on the east side of the city, which is the Mount of Olives. Now we go to Zechariah 14, and we pick this up. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoils shall be divided in the midst of thee, for I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, raped, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity. That's the half a time. That's the end of all the bad things that happened to Israel. It's now over. And the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Well, they've had the mark placed on their head. Nothing bad happens to them. Then shall Jehovah go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. This is the glory of God of Israel, not who God put his name Jehovah in. This is not Yeshua. Yeshua never fought in the day of battle yet. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. We just read the glory of God of Israel on the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. It's a third of a mile east of where the temple would normally be. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof, the east, and then they run through the opening. And it says, it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear, nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them towards the former sea, and half of them towards the hinder sea, in summer and in winter. And the Lord shall be king over all the earth in that day. So the tribulation's over. Or how could he be king over all the earth? You see what I'm saying? We need a little more clarity, but I'm getting there. And his name won. All the lands shall be turned as a plain, and this is the new heaven and the new earth. And it shall be lifted up. Okay. There shall be no more destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes or their sockets, and their tongues shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass in that day a great tumult from Jehovah shall be among them, and they shall hold and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. People are killing each other, brother fighting brother. And Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver, and apparel in great abundance. And so shall be the plague of the horse and the mule. And it goes on and describes Jerusalem, where it's a holy city and all that. So I think we covered some ground today. All right, we'll do a quick word. Let me read the chat, see if I got to answer anything. Yeah, the cam moves. This YouTube app makes the thing focus. I can't help it. Yeah, Jacob had 12 sons, 12 tribes. Yeah, don't worry about the English. All right, a quick word on the American Civil War. I watched the speech with Biden's White House people, the press secretary, that woman, and some other guy. I don't know who he was. And they were saying, well, you know, Abbott is interfering with Border Patrol doing their job. That's all he kept saying, both of them. So they're obviously going to do something. Of course, the job of Border Patrol is to just pass these people through and hand them a paper making them legal under amnesty, and they could appear in court in the year 2031. They didn't talk about that. Abbott's interfering with Border Patrol doing their job. So Abbott moved a lot of tanks, Abram tanks, and Bradley armored assault vehicles to the border of Texas from the State National Guard. He also asked for volunteers from the Texas Air National Guard who would be flying fighter jets. So he's moving equipment to the border. And somebody, one churchianity guy says he's moving equipment to the border to stop the illegals. No, he's not. You don't need tanks to do that. All you need are people with rifles and pistols and walkie-talkies and stuff. No, he's doing that to stop Biden if Biden tries to use a show of force. Last count, 14 states had sent him additional members of their own state National Guard or state police. So he's building up a pretty good inventory of soldiers. This is all choreographed, and they know what they're going to do, and they're going to do it, and it looks like they're going to start the fighting. That's what it looks like to me. There's not any other really relevant stuff. The deadline that Biden gave to Texas was up yesterday, and so far nothing. We'll see. Something will happen. Now, this is how you could see the snare is working. It's a staged thing. They're talking about shutting the border, but that's not going to do it. It stops it from getting worse. But it's at 11 or 12 million. 70% are military-age males, the sleeper agents. Okay, 70%. That's like 8 million or something like that. More. They're not talking about running these people out of America, are they? No. The damage has been done. They don't want you to see that. They want you to fight to shut the border. That's not going to help. So this civil war looks to me, prophetically, it's going to definitely happen. There's talk of 700,000 truckers going down to the border with Mexico and blocking them or something. I heard one trucker guy on YouTube says he doesn't know anybody. He has a trucker channel. He had a lot of people on his channel, I think over 1 million, and he said he didn't know a single trucker that was headed down to the border. He thinks it's just a rumor. And they're supposed to be heading, I think, tomorrow. So people are not, they're not saying this is credible. Hang on a minute. No. All right, we've been on a long time. I don't like to have this drag out too long. The videos get too big. So I'm Moshe, my wife is Rivka. Please pray for us for peace, safety, protection, and joy. Somebody wants us to toss the Mardi Gras parades in New Orleans. I don't think we could toss the parades. There's so many of them all the time for days in a row. I think what we should do is toss the organizers and promoters of these Mardi Gras parades. So let's give a good toss to all the organizers and the promoters of the various Mardi Gras parades. These are pagan holiday celebrations. They're pretty evil. Okay, so let's toss that. That's the most intelligent thing. And then if they realize they're being tossed, they might think twice before they start doing Fat Tuesday and the Day of the Dead and all the other garbage they got. Okay, so I'm Moshe, my wife's Rivka, so please pray for our peace, safety, protection, and joy, and healing of our bodies. And pray for our finances, and thank you for the offerings, and pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, to be happy, healthy, and whole. And I'm going to keep digging and keep putting the pieces together for you on the sequencing and timing of these prophecies. But the daughter of Babylon is the day of vengeance, will go in the year of recompenses, and the Lord made it very clear to me when that is, and it started on or about, give or take a few days, August 1, 2023, and it's a 12-monther. So there you have it. So the daughter of Babylon, as you see, is rapidly moving towards its destruction. Okay. And there'll be a harvest, and you'll be coming to Israel. So the whole world lays at rest when the daughter of Babylon's destroyed, and that's when Israel's going to have some good flourishing times. And I'm going to keep digging, and we're going to keep getting more insights, and you keep praying for that, okay? That's important. You keep praying for that. So at this point, I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.